We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was produced, the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present.
It's 2024 and water polo player Elle Armit is training hard for the upcoming Olympic Games in Paris. The Aussie Stingers navigated a difficult Tokyo Olympics in the height of COVID. After they placed fifth, Elle needed some time out of the game. Rested and recharged, she's ready to revisit the dream of winning gold. She's training from 5 each morning, racing to her teaching job and then back into training at night. Elle is giving this her all. But one conversation with her coach changes everything, and Elle is dropped from the team. She's told she's not ready. Elle is standing in the way of her own success. Elle screams and cries. This is not part of the plan. But she isn't ready to give up. I'm at Middleton, and this is Head Game. Today, Elle Armit on developing a high-performance mindset and her tough road back to the podium. Now, Elle, you've had a sort of love-hate relationship with the sport over the years. How did water polo come into your life? Was it something that your mother, your father played? How did it come about?
Yeah, I started when I was quite little in primary school, and I started with a modified version that kids play in like the shallow end of the pool and like a smaller ball. I was quite fortunate when I was growing up in North Queensland. There was a huge push for development for water polo in Queensland, and I just gave it a go pretty much and fell in love with it. And I played a lot of different sports right up until I left school, but water polo was one of my main sports. I think I was much more a water athlete than I was a land athlete, so it was just something I took to like a duck to water, really.
And you say you're a water athlete. Were you brought up by the beach? What did your family sort of unit look like? Did you come from a big family? Were you always outdoors? How did that look?
Yeah, definitely. I have 4 older brothers, so we're quite an active family, always, doing some sort of sport on the weekends or playing with each other in the backyard. We grew up in Townsville in North Queensland, so it's on the beach. So we did a lot of surf life-saving and swimming as kids. But, we played a multitude of sports, really. I did everything.
And any of your brothers into water polo?
Yeah, so a couple of them did play growing up. One was quite good. He got to the junior Oz level, but then they all went on and chose their careers over their sporting endeavours. So the one that got to the Australian level, he is now a orthopaedic surgeon. So he chose that route over playing water polo.
Yes, I've learnt that within water polo, there's a second career that you have to have, right, in order to obviously support yourself, support your family, and to really focus on the water polo from a separate standpoint. So ultimately, there's 2 careers there. What career came first to you? Was it the water polo? Did you step into the sort of the professional realm of water polo before you stepped into a career, or did they come hand in hand?
I kind of stumbled into the professional sense of water polo first. When I first moved to Brisbane, it definitely wasn't on my radar. I was just kind of cracking into the QAS squad and trying to make the senior team. And then this opportunity came up to go play in Italy. And I was 18 and starry-eyed, and of course I wanted to go live in Italy and play professional water polo. But I don't think I actually knew what that meant until I got there. And it was one of the most humbling and hardest times of my life. But after I came home and realised that was probably a silly mistake, but we don't know those things until we look back, and hindsight is a beautiful thing, I then started studying to become a teacher.
So take me back to Italy. What happened? Was it exciting times? How did that look, and how did your parents and your family take to that decision?
Yeah, so generally what happens when you're an import in one of the European leagues is someone kind of scouts you somewhere along the way and kind of gives you a call or your coach a call and says, hey, we'd love to have her on our team. In this case, there was an Australian girl already in this team, and she didn't want to stay anymore. She wanted to come home. So she kind of rang me and was like, do you want to take my place? We played similar positions. Again, we had... it was Italy and I wanted to go, and my dad used to live in Italy, so he had some family friends there that if things went south, they were kind of okay with me going to them, and it wasn't like I was in a foreign country with absolutely nobody around. But it was a very hard time because I did spend a lot of time on the phone to my mum crying because it was so hard, and I was 18. I had no idea.
Were you homesick?
Yeah, and I had no idea what I was doing, and the coach was the typical European screaming at me in Italian, and there was just like a multitude of things happening, and yeah, it was a really very steep learning curve for me.
So the psychological aspect is there, especially being an export player, like you said. So a lot of pressure on you to perform. Everyone looking to you. What's the physical side like? Because you're constantly in the water. You're constantly wet. How often are you training? What does that physical side to water polo look like?
Yeah, so I went to Italy a few times to play in a few different teams, and in the kind of later teams that I was in, they were a bit more in the top 1-2 of the league. So they were training, I think we ended up training about 10, 11 times a week. So you do, 3 gym, 3 swim, and then all skills at night and games on every Saturday. So it is it's a physical toll on your body, and you only get one kind of day off to rest. But then again, you're in a different country, so you kind of want to go explore things and see different things. But yeah, the Italians and actually a lot of the European teams are very physical players and very aggressive and passionate, and it just comes out on their playing. So in the games, you're kind of getting kicked and hit and scratched and things, as well as trying to prove that you're one of the best players in your team and hold the team together. So it's a lot of, moving parts.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I suppose, you're like a rabbit in the headlights as well. Like you said, you're young, you're naive. And you mentioned naive. Sometimes it's best to go into situations like that with a naive mindset because, you deal with the situation at hand. You deal with everything once it's presented to you. How did you find the pressure of being the export player and then all of a sudden, realizing that, everything's ramping up from the pressure on you to the training to, living life away from Australia, being homesick. How did you deal with that? How do you manage that?
I guess as the seasons went on and I got a bit more experienced at it, you just kind of learn that you can only do what you can only do. So instead of kind of putting all this pressure on yourself to be this amazing player, they've picked you for a reason. So you're going to go there and play your game and try and incorporate their tactics for sure. But yeah, you can only do what you can only do. So it's just, kind of relinquishing that major pressure and then also leading into it as a challenge.
Yeah, that's amazing because, to function at such a level, you sort of need that sense of confidence to realize that, that without it teetering into arrogance, I suppose, of realizing that, I'm flying through the ranks here. I'm playing for all the top clubs in Europe. And then all of a sudden you get a call from the Stingers in Australia. When do you remember that phone call? When do you remember, being called up by the national team? Yeah,
definitely. I remember kind of doing a tournament, and the head coach was there. At this time, I was still living in Townsville, and he was like, are you going to move to Brisbane next year? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he was like, I think you should. And I was like, okay. And then, kind of told me to move. And once I moved, I was kind of accepted into this QAS program. And then eventually, I think in like 2013 was my very first game. And I was so nervous. I got on for maybe a minute and I was just shaking the entire time. But I don't really remember the call that he gave me or the email that I saw my name. But yeah, I was just happy to be there, to be honest. I was just happy to sit on the bench and watch everyone else because I was too scared to get in the water. But once you kind of get over that initial shock, it's a lot of fun.
And then Tokyo comes up. That was quite a an unsettling sort of time in the world. Talk me through when you first got called up to Tokyo to represent your country for the Olympics.
Yeah, so obviously the lead up was just so tumultuous and unsure. And, I kind of still remember flying home to Townsville to be with my parents for their quarantine and getting the message to say that the Olympics were cancelled. And it still gives me chills to this day that we were like, that I lost it. We were about to go over to Europe to play a tournament, and we were leaving Australia. As we got on the plane and we were flying to Dubai, there was messages flying, backwards and forwards about there's someone in Italy that's super spreading COVID throughout Italy. So we land in Dubai and they say to us, hey, we can't go to Italy anymore because seems like a health risk to us. We're just going to chill for a second and maybe divert straight to Hungary, which is our second stop. And then we sit around for a few hours and whatnot and get our bags off the plane, and we go get a hotel and check into a hotel. The next morning we get up and our coaches are like, yeah, so Hungary's off the plan as well because there's COVID there and it's just not it. So we're going to turn around and go back to Australia. So we went back to Australia. We went back to our training environments, and I think we went to Canberra for a little bit and back home. And then I vividly remember sitting on the couch watching the news, and they're going to close the borders to Queensland. And I just called my manager and I said, should I be going home? And she was like, yeah, get out. So I left the next day, packed a bag enough for like 2 weeks. Like I thought it was good. Everyone thought it was 2 weeks. And then when I got home, I was at the airport waiting for my mum to pick me up, and the message came through that it was postponed, and I was just floodgates. And it's just still emotional today, actually. But then we kind of just locked in, and we just had to train in case there was a call one day that we're back on. So we just did what everyone else did.
So I suppose there was a little glimmer of hope that things would come about. And when they did come about, do you remember that moment? And was it from pure sort of, just that same routine to all of a sudden having that spark ignited, or was it just a case of, oh, this is happening now, and not really believing it?
Yeah, it was a tough one because there was still obviously, the Japanese people didn't want the Olympics to go ahead, and there were still protests and things happening. So we still weren't sure, even though the IOC were like, yes, the Olympics are going ahead. We weren't sure until we got on the plane that it was actually happening. And there was just so much protocol and things that we had to do, like go and stage in Cairns for 2 weeks just to be able to get on a plane to go to Tokyo and things like that. But yeah, I think once we were like certain that it was on, and well, at least for us, it was going to happen. We were just going to train like it was going to happen, and we were going to deal with it when we got there. But yeah, I still remember the moment my coach called me up and said I was on the final 13 on the way to Tokyo. I think I was on my brother's deck and kind of overlooking Townsville. My mum was behind me and I said, don't come out here until I tell you to come out here. And the minute I had hung up the phone call, she was like by my side. So I was like, oh, I'm good. Yeah, literally. And she's just kind of like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, I'm in. And then she was just crying. So I think that kept me really calm. So I didn't cry, but I was like such an amazing feeling hearing those words.
I bet it was, and it obviously reignites the whole reason for you doing what you were doing during lockdown, and continuing to be an elite athlete, which is what was required of you. Even the discipline to do that during lockdown is another level by itself. What was it like landing in Tokyo?
To be honest, we were so sheltered. So like we got off the plane, we were like corralled, we were tested, and we were put onto a bus and like masks and everything. And then we got bused straight into the village. Once we're in the village, you're not allowed to leave unless you're going to a training or game. So we didn't interact with any of the public at all. The only public we saw were like kind of lining the streets as we'd go to training. But they seemed like happy and excited to see the Olympic buses going past. So yeah, again, we didn't see any kind of unrest by the Japanese public, but we didn't interact with anyone. We just were in the village or at our training venue, and that was it, or game venue.
And what was it like training together for the first time after such a long time of being, by yourself, having the team back together. Was there a moment there, or was it just like, listen, we've got a job to do. We've been out of it for a while. We just need to get in and utilize this time to crack on. What was that like coming together?
Yeah, it was different because we didn't play any international games leading up to Tokyo. So the first one was a bit of a shock to the system. But yeah, once you're in that Olympic village, it's so exciting. There's so much kind of happening still that you get a few days to find your feet, and then it's just game mode. So like, you game on, let's go. We're here to do a job, and we're not going to stop until we have done it.
And do you feel like that Tokyo was, obviously you couldn't prepare as you wished as a team, and that interaction, face-to-face interaction, the energy, that team sort of ethos that you can't experience during lockdown or when you're isolated. Did that come back straight away, or did you find that you were working on that whilst you were actually competing?
It definitely, we had to work on it every day while we're competing. And you just lose those kind of little nuances and the little touches that you have with each other that you learn from playing with each other over a long period of time. So we had to try and get that back quite quickly. We still had lots of team meetings throughout where we were kind of like, well, what's missing? Where are the gaps type of thing? But yeah, it's something you have to work on all the time, no matter if things are going well, if things are going bad. So,
do you think it affected your overall performance of the Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, it's really hard to say because everyone kind of had a similar prep. Some of the teams played games, some didn't. So yeah, it's really hard to comment whether that, playing prep games might have helped us, and it usually does help in the lead up to things. But again, yeah, who's to say?
Yeah. Where did you come in the Tokyo Olympics?
We got 5th.
And was there a sense of excitement about that, or was there a sense of success considering the situation, or was there a sense of disappointment where you believed you could have done better?
Yeah, so we got bronze in the World Champs in 2019, so the year before the Olympics were meant to be. So we were a top 4 projected team. So we were expecting to get top 4, and we lost our quarterfinal by 1. So that was a big kind of heartbreak moment for us, because it's a hard thing playing a team sport. Once you lose your quarter, you're out of medal contention. There's no coming back. But after that moment, we kind of sat down and we're like, well, we're going to finish with the best result we possibly can. So we just kind of went out all guns blazing and got the best we could from then on.
And were you happy with your performance after Tokyo? Because you fell out of love with the sport shortly after Tokyo. Was it due to the team? Was it due to your personal performance? What happened there? Why did you fall out of love with something that was been ingrained in you for such a long time?
So I think I did for my first Olympics, and for being kind of the inexperienced national player that I was, I think I did quite well in my position. It was just a huge kind of 2 years, and then I was living out of a storage unit at the time in Sydney because of COVID. I was back and forth from everywhere, so I had nowhere to live. And just the thought of having to find somewhere to live and a job and all those things, I was just like, that's too hard. I'm just going to go overseas and play another contract in Italy for the team I'd played for. So I went overseas and played, and I just don't think, and I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's this huge thing that happens after the Olympics is called the post-Olympic depression, and it hits almost everybody. So you're just going up this huge high and then you just drop. And I obviously wasn't prepared for that, and I ran overseas away from my problems and just being away from my support system and in a situation that I thought, again, was a lot different to what I was expecting and things like that. So it kind of hit me quite hard over there, and I just kind of almost fell apart, and I needed to step away from water polo to see if it was water polo that was causing these feelings and emotions, or if it was something else. And I just needed some time away from the sport, so I didn't leave, with a tainted feeling and towards it. So that's what I did. I just took a step back and had, took stock of my life and see where I was at.
And how did the coaches and the national team take to that
The national team players, coaches definitely were. It was kind of a weird time for Australian water polo. We went through quite a lot of coaches in about a 8-year period or 7-year period. So we were kind of in the midst of changing coaches at the time. And when the new coach came on board, I just kind of gave him a call and said, look, I just need a break. I'm sorry, I can't go to World Champs. And he was quite accepting of that and understood, we're people first, and he was taking care of, the person first. And then he just said, we'll circle back after World Champs and see how you're going.
What was your mindset? Was your mindset, like, I'm never going to revisit the sport again? Or was your mindset, well, I'm going to go away, work on myself and come back?
Yeah, so I worked pretty closely with my psych at the time, and he was kind of the one that suggested that I take that step back, because when you're in it, it's really hard to see what else is outside. And so I took the step back from water polo, and then I kind of came home from my international season, got a job at the school that I'm working at right now, and just kind of enjoyed life without sport.
Got you. So you cut it all out. You went back to teaching. What changed your mind then?
Well, I kind of played, there's like a Queensland kind of tournament that happens at the end of every year, and I played that with my friends in one of the random teams. Like I wasn't planning on taking it seriously, and I was just going to play to have fun with my friends. And obviously playing games is really what generally ignites the love of the game in everyone. And just doing that, and then I kind of dipped my toe back in and went back to training a few times a week and just built it back up and kind of thought, well, if I'm going to do this, it's 3 more years or 2 more years, and if not now, then when? And, why not me type of thing. And I remember one vivid conversation. I was working at a different school as a casual teacher, and there was a ex-Australian athlete there. He was a rower in Sydney, and he was the reserve, and he was talking to me, and he was like, you'd be so stupid not to try again for Paris. Like, if you can't do it now, then, you've got the rest of your life to work. And I'd heard people say that to me like so many times. I had people say, you can work for the rest of your life, so many times. But it was just kind of the way he said it and who he was in that exact moment that I was kind of like, I'm being stupid here. Like, I need to give this another go, and I need to change the narrative on water polo. I can't leave like this. I can't leave thinking it was that bad and I was that down in the dumps. So I just had to give it another go. And if I didn't make it, I didn't make it, but at least I gave it a go. And I might have lasted 1 month. I might have lasted all the way to Paris. But yeah, that was kind of the turning point for me.
So you're working a full-time job at the school, and then you're obviously training on the side. How does that schedule work for you? Are you getting up super early and jumping in the pool? How did that look all the way up to obviously you going into your training camps to prepare for the Paris Olympics?
Yeah, so it wasn't all the time, but for a huge 2 to 3 months, I was up early. I was in the gym or in the pool or both. And then I was showering at school, eating breakfast at my desk while I marked the roll for homeroom, and then went to class all day, taught all day, would come home quickly, change or do anything that I needed to do before the nighttime practice, and then go to training until 8:30 at night, come home, cook dinner, prep, do everything for the next day, and then just get up and do it all again the next day.
And that takes some dedication and discipline. So you'd fallen back in love with the sport, because obviously you have to be that dedicated and committed and disciplined towards it. How does the call up feel for? Obviously, you've had the call up before for your first Olympics back in Tokyo. How does it differ from the call up for Paris?
The Paris one was a lot harder, because there's a lot more emotions, there's a lot more at stake, and I'm not sure if you know, but I got dropped from the team about 6 months out. So I was still in the squad, but I got DNS from the World Champs. I was a reserve for the World Champs that happened in January.
Why and how?
It was just kind of a moment of me getting in my own way, and it was kind of a weird situation. So our coach at the Paris Olympics was our assistant coach in Tokyo, and she'd been the assistant coach all the way up in the Paris cycle. And then about a year out from Paris, we had a huge review of our program, and our current coach, and that coach got fired. And so we were coachless for quite a long time, and then she was appointed as coach in December, so it's like 6 months-ish out, and had a quick turnaround to have a training camp and prepare and get a team selected for a world champs. That was like in February or something. And so she only really saw us training and stuff for about a week, but she obviously knew who we were, being the assistant coach. And she, after I got the announcement that I didn't make it, I had a sit-down meeting with her, and she essentially was just like, we've spoken about this before, and it was something that she and the old coach had come to me with before Tokyo and said, you're in your head, you're in your own way, you're the one stopping you here from being this athlete that we know who you are, and you have the potential and capabilities of being. So she's like, I think you need the time right now to get that fixed so you can go to Paris. Otherwise, if we prolong this, you're not going to Paris, essentially, like paraphrasing. But it just was, a conversation and a huge wake-up call that I had become too comfortable. I was just going in the motions.
Complacent.
Yeah, I was complacent. I was just turning up. I wasn't training, maybe to my full potential. And this was a huge wake-up call. And, there was moments where I was like, well, I tried, see ya, this will be it, I'm out. And then there were other moments where I was like, no, I'm so close, and I'm going to prove to her that I'm not complacent. Like I'm doing everything. And so that was another moment where I got all the kind of assistant and support stuff that I could in a room, and I was like, how am I getting to Paris? How are we getting there? Let's go, let's organise. Because again, I wasn't in the travelling squad, so I had to stay home and train, which means I had to stay home and work. So again, I'm working full time when I didn't plan to be, and things like that. So it was getting the final call, I think, was even more emotional than the first one, because I was I purposely was by myself in my apartment, just sitting in the fields for a long time. Yeah.
Wow. And this is where the head game comes in, because you've been dropped, and you go one or two ways, but you either have that sort of fuck you attitude where you go, well, listen, I've done everything I can for you lot, or you go, actually, the reason why this happened, am I being complacent? Am I getting a bit too big for my boots? Am I getting overconfident? Do I think that the team can't function without me? And then that reality check comes in, and, luckily, and, knowing your potential and your capabilities, you went down the road of, right, listen, let's get back in that team. And that takes a certain mindset to do that. And so you were just full steam ahead, wanting to prove to yourself, wanting to prove to the coaches that you've got what it takes. When did you get invited back, and how did you feel?
Yeah, so we just got a message kind of saying, this is the schedule that we're going to. I think we're just doing the blocks in Canberra again. So we did like month stints in Canberra doing training at the AIS. So when I got back into that, I was really nervous. I was scared. Yeah, I was like, I have to prove myself every minute of every day here. There's no sleeping at all, like not physically sleeping. Of course I slept. But
yeah, I know. Yeah, there's no sleeping on the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of nervous, and I just channeled that nervous energy into doing the best I could every day, and trying to prove that I was everything that she was saying that I wasn't, and being physically fit and being a team player, being mentally fit and things like that. So yeah, I just kind of threw myself into it.
Wow. And then Paris. What differed from landing in Tokyo to landing in Paris? Obviously, apart from all of the pandemic sort of lockdown stuff, but what differed in pressure? You were expected to perform a lot better than you did in Tokyo, right?
Kind of the opposite. We did a lot of European tours before, so we were, in the end, I think we're in Europe, including the 3 weeks at the Olympics, maybe like 7 weeks. So we did a lot of prep beforehand, a lot of common trainings with other countries and things like that. And the week before we went into the village, we were in the French Institute of Sport with the French team, playing them. But ranking wise, we didn't rank very high. We maybe got a 4th at the one of the world champs, and maybe a 5th or 6th at another one. So we were in top 6 for sure, but we had to keep reminding ourselves, I think, what kind of failed us in the Tokyo cycle was that we thought we were a gold medal chance without actually producing any gold medal performances. Whereas this time we literally broke our whole program down and we built it back up. So we worked on it every single day. And I think psych was a huge part of that. So landing in Paris or going into the Olympic Village was so exciting because we were just so excited to see what we could do. Because we had a few pre-tournaments where we were winning games that, theoretically we shouldn't be winning, or previously we wouldn't have won. But yeah, leading into Paris, it was just kind of like, well, why not us as well?
So there's almost the pressure was off, but it was on. You knew you could perform, and I suppose when the pressure's off as such, and the spotlight's not on you, you sort of you go in with a more relaxed attitude, don't you, and a more relaxed feel, even though that behind the scenes, there's expectations and there's pressures. You come out of the Paris Olympics with silver. Did you ever imagine that you could possibly win this?
To be honest, we had a really hard pool, and so we were just literally taking it game by game. And like I said, we hadn't really had that much many performances where we were winning all the tournaments and things like that. So we literally took it game by game. And when we topped our pool was kind of the minute that we were like, well, hang on a second, like anything can happen at the Olympics here. So, why can't we win a gold medal? So, from the kind of quarterfinals onwards when we were in the medal stage, it was very much on our radar, but we just had to keep to our processes and keep to it game by game and just, we could have got knocked out in the semi and then knocked out in the bronze. So it could go one of, 3 or 4 different ways. So, yeah, we literally just couldn't get ahead of ourselves. We just had to take it game by game. And then once we were in the gold medal match, it was just kind of a pinch me moment. Like our programs a whole year ago was in ruins and we were in a review and we lost our coach and, there was so much going on in the background to now being in a gold medal Olympic game. Like that's unheard of. And so we were just kind of like, we are here. Why don't we, finish strong, and why not us? This Spanish team, yeah, it's a unit. It's a strong team that's played together for so many years, but so with other teams that we knocked off. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And you unfortunately, you don't come out on top, but you come out on top with a silver medal in the Olympics, which is absolutely phenomenal. And you talk about a moment after receiving your medal where you had a hug with your family. Why was that so important? And what did it feel like?
Yeah, it was just incredible. It's a weird thing losing a game but getting a silver medal, because the bronze people in the call room are so excited, the gold medal team's so excited, and you're just kind of like in this weird middle feeling. But once we had our moment and we got the medals and we were excited that we got a silver medal, I found them in the crowd and just giving them the hug. Like, obviously having 4 brothers, you don't show a lot of emotion, and they never really hug me or, say nice things to me. So having this like big hug and, moment with my brothers was just incredible, because especially them and my parents, it's as much their medal as it is mine, because they've sacrificed just as much, and they were always on the other end of the phone when I was, 16,000 kilometres away crying and, going when I was, in my depths of the pits of hell. So they have been on every part of this journey with me. So I'm really glad that I give them something tangible and physical that they could touch and see that, this wasn't wasted.
I can see you getting emotional right now talking about that, which is, I can only imagine what you were like when you actually had that hug, and it's such a powerful moment. And you mentioned, it's so aware of you to mention a sacrifice that, other people make to get to where you want to be, and where you could deliver that silver medal. And it's giving me goosebumps thinking about it. But how important is it to not give up on yourself, Ellie?
Massively. It's something that I think everyone battles with every day, is just this imposter syndrome, especially as Australians, where, have this tall poppy syndrome and whatnot. But it's something you have to work on all the time. And I think along the way I lost it a few times, and I was so grateful to the people who pulled me back and reminded me and gave me another chance. You have to back yourself, and you have to put the effort in and put the work in. Things aren't just going to come easily. So I think, self-belief and self-love is crucial. It's huge.
Any last question? What is next for yourself? I love it that you're in your school doing this interview with myself, because you're still working away as a teacher. But what's next for you when it comes to water polo and your career there?
I really don't know. At the minute, I'm kind of taking a break from the national team again, and I'm back training once a week with the QAS squad, but I'm just kind of enjoying doing my own kind of training in a gym or running or Pilates, and I think I just need to kind of throw myself into my job for a bit and see if that's something that I want to pursue, because it's had such a backseat my entire career. I'm just kind of figuring it out at this point in time, and I'm not really sure what it holds for my life.
Well, listen, that's magnificent. Thank you ever so much for coming on Head Game. I hope I didn't make you cry too much.
No.
Filling your glasses up there. It's amazing what you're doing with the children. Keep it up. And listen, thank you for coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining me on Head Game. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Matt Middleton. Catch you again next time.